Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up to this. We're talking about emotional freedom and energy body management, which is really fundamental part of shamanism, of doing any type of spiritual work. Because the awakening journey, the spiritual journey that we're on, the initiation that you've had is to help you become a different person. The person who is no longer driven by the old stories, the old wounds. We need to become different people. We need to change our energy bodies so that we can be those who write the new stories for the new world that we want to create together. So that these old stories that break our hearts, these old stories can die with us. And this is really the greatest gift that we can give to the world. This is the greatest gift that we can give to those who are coming. That we take our part in killing off these old stories in ourselves, and that we live the remaining days of our lives creating new stories. And the only way that we can do that is if we show up, if we grow up, so that we can do the work and change things. These old stories live in us in a way so that we carry them in our emotional body. And what I invite you to do here today is to start your journey on the joyful way, the path of changing these energies so that we can save ourselves. We're talking about feelings and emotions today. So feelings, emotions are the universal language of the soul, and they must be honored. They are the authentic expression of who you are at your deepest place. So emotions are energy in motion, and this is how I'm going to define these two different words so that we're clear about what we're meaning when we talk about energy, emotions, and feelings. Emotions is energy that is in motion. Everything is made of energy, and everything is in constant motion. And the way these energies move create waves, and waves create patterns, and these patterns create archetypes, and these archetypes are what we call emotions. Feelings are the personal meaning or thoughts that we ascribe to these archetypal emotional energies. Some of you have seen this before, but I want to bring this back in. So there's two types of people in the world: those who think they're self-aware, which is the vast majority, and those who actually are self-aware, which is quite a small percentage. That percentage is around about the same percentage of people who are highly sensitive, by the way. So I don't know if I can draw that line, but I am going to just suggest it slightly. So coming into self-awareness is all about spiritual techniques, that we don't suppress ourselves, we don't suppress what we feel. We're going to talk about anger as the kind of key emotion to the warrior energy. Anger is the energy of the liver, the wood element in the body, and we cannot suppress anger any more than the sky can suppress lightning during a thunderstorm. What we can do is control the way it moves through us. We don't let anger control us. We figure out a way to change our perspective on the energy. So what we want to do is come out of these kind of limiting language words around emotions. So we're not just saying, hey, I'm good, I'm not good, or I'm not bad, or it's bad. But that we start having a vocabulary for how to express what's really happening to us. We can split emotions up in general, things that we like, good, things that we don't like, not good. But we really want to be much, 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 much more clear and nuanced so that we don't live in this black and white world, but that we start moving into a world full of color. So we've talked about before the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and where these things are really going on. And a lot of these big, heavy emotions are not happening in the conscious mind. They're actually happening further down in the subconscious. So as we become more self-aware, we want to lower that bar, our critical defenses, so that our conscious mind merges into our subconscious mind, or that our subconscious mind becomes more and more conscious. So we're going to talk about dancing with our emotions, because the true nature of our emotions can surprise us when we explore them through shamanic practice. A lot of the times, emotions don't come from where we think they do, and they're not composed of what they seem to be. So one of the most important explorations that we can do is journeying with our helping spirits to get to know our emotions better. We want to cultivate an emotional body of an adult. We don't want to be, in the physical body of an adult with the energy body of a child. And we're going to talk quite a lot about cultivation today, because a lot of us avoid cultivation. And this is something where, a lot of the kind of psychology comes into spirituality, but spirituality goes a little bit deeper always. So really understanding that in this dance of emotion, our emotions help show us where the path is towards our true purpose. And we're going to talk about why calling emotions negative and just kind of getting rid of them isn't working. But first, let me get back to you with my favorite poem, which is this. Energy moves in waves, waves move in rhythm, and rhythm create pattern. That's all a human being is. Energy, waves, rhythm, and pattern. So when we work with these more challenging emotions, they help us process into a place where we can feel good about our expression in the world and come out of these kind of subconscious, forgotten places. Some of these feelings we've been suppressing for so long that they're stuck in our emotional basement. So when we start to work with this, we're coming out of subconscious programming and coming out of all these aspects of ourselves that we've cut off and denied, so that we can be expressive, deep feeling, authentic humans in all the ranges of the colors. So we need all these different components of an energy body. And a really important word as well is discernment. Because how do I deal with, hard emotions, challenging emotions like anger, frustration, disappointment, hurt, not regressing into childish responses, but constantly coming back to being in the world in the emotional body of an adult. And we need to attend to those places in ourselves where we have wounds, so that we can release that pent-up energy, open the door to the basement, and start beginning to respond to life as an adult. A lot of this is not talked about in shamanic trainings, because there's a tendency to get a little bit of ego in the way, right? We just want to do the fun stuff, the cool stuff, the witchy things, the magicy things. But if we are not cultivating this, I called it the flute or the hollow bone, if we're not cultivating the energy body of integrity within ourselves so that we can receive these emotions from a place of discernment, none of our shamanic work is going to have good result in the world. Or it might have a bit, but it's not going to be as potent as it could be, as it should be. I really like this book. This is a book that you might want to investigate a little bit further. It's called The Language of Emotions, What Your Feelings Are Trying to Tell You by Carla McLaren. And one thing that I really liked about this book that I want to mention as well is there were a few things that I read in there that really, really, really resonated. A lot of things that I read in there that really, really resonated, actually. And then there were a few things where I thought, no, I don't agree with that. And I love that. I love when I read something and it kind of triggers me into deeper thought and reflection about myself. So this is a fantastic book. There's a lot of cool exercises in there. If some of the things I'm talking about today, you're like, oh my God, I don't even understand where to begin. Obviously, I'm here. Talk to me. Talk about it with the group. But this book could also be a really good tool for you to go a little bit deeper with. And I love this quote. Emotions are celebrated and repressed, analyzed and medicated, adored and ignored. But rarely, if ever, are they honored. That's what I want to do here. I want to honor your emotions. Because emotions are always true, even if they're not always right. This is another quote from the book. Here's a third quote from the book. Without our emotions, we can't make decisions. We can't decipher our dreams and visions. We can't set proper boundaries or behave skillfully in relationships. We can't identify our hopes or support the hopes of others. And we can't connect to or even find our dearest loves. And obviously, here's the thing. You can't disown one emotion and think that all the other emotions are going to function. So if you cut out, for example, your anger, if you suppress your anger, your love will decrease as well. Your joy will decrease as well. So there's an illustration on the screen right now of the 5 elements from Chinese medicine. So you can see you have your heart and the small intestines, where you have these kind of negative emotions of hate, cruelty, and impatience, but also joy, happiness, exuberance. Then you have earth, which is your stomach, your spleen, and your pancreas. The negative emotions here are worry, anxiety, and mistrust. In your lung, we talked about this, or we will talk about this in the visionary. It's all about sadness and depression and grief. Kidney, ears, and bladder, which is the water element. Fear. We go deep into fear in the water element. And now here we are in wood. And so the negative emotions of wood are anger, frustration, jealousy, envy. And this is really in the liver. Now, speaking for myself, I shut out my anger. So I'm speaking from experience. I'm not just making this up. I shut out my experience when I was around 8-9 years old, when I had an experience with my immediate family where I expressed anger about something and quickly realized that it was not safe. I was severely punished. And so made a really strong decision in the moment that I would not get angry anymore because it just wasn't safe. Fast forward about 10 years and I had serious liver issues that had gotten so bad that I was losing my eyesight. So suppressing anger can have really intense effects. You can also notice that when people drink alcohol, which is something that goes directly into the liver, they tend to get angry. Not everybody. You get joyful first and then angry later, right? Maybe. Here's another illustration of the same thing. I just wanted to show you a different picture. It's very much the same words, but just seeing that kind of cycle of how the different organs deal with different emotions, different archetypes, right? Last quote from the book that I think so. Your emotions don't create problems. They arise to help you deal with problems. Learn their language and you can change the world. So what we're talking about today is cultivating a healthy energy body. And cultivating a healthy energy body is all about gaining perspective. And this perspective is fundamental because it gives us the ability to actually discern between our reactions to things and our own intentions or desires as an adult. Meaning, what do I want to be able to do in the world? And if we don't have a healthy energy body, it's going to block our ability to live shamanically. I was going to say it's going to stand in the way, get in the way, but it's really going to block us from being able to do what we want to do and what we want to create. We're going to go over some steps to cultivating healthy energy. The first thing, like the baseline structures of what needs to happen, means that we have to work with, like I said in the beginning, these kind of stories and beliefs, things that we've been pushing down in the basement. We need to clear them at the root. Because obviously emotions have their own logic. There's a reason for them being there. And sometimes the conditions you had as a child basically emotions come in as a child when our needs, or negative emotions or heavy emotions, difficult emotions, when our needs were not getting met. And it was a valid need as a child, but that need from others is no longer a valid need as we grow into adulthood. So let's go about cultivating a healthy emotional body. It has to start with this desire in you to cultivate emotional well-being. Deep feelings, grounded, connected to the world, feeling that we are an outward expression of the divine. We have this deep feeling state to truly be in our emotion. Now, I want to say too, like, cultivating is a different action from processing an emotion. Cultivating, and I've used this illustration of somebody, in their garden or in the field. We're cultivating emotions, meaning that we're growing our relationship to them. Processing emotions is more like, I'm feeling something, let it work through my body and let it go. Cultivating means that we're not just feeling the feeling or the emotion, we're going deeper with it. We want to get so deep that we grow out of these sort of childish states, because living as an adult in the emotional body of a child won't work. It's not going to work for you. It's not going to work out well. Because then as an adult, we have constantly unhealthy over-responding and under-responding and overreacting and underreacting to things in life. So it's really necessary to cultivate an adult emotional body, and again, growing up through our emotions. We will not understand our emotions clearly until we cultivate a healthy emotional body. So when we process emotions, we can stay within our childish patterns and these kind of systems of belief. So, I'm angry. Okay, I felt angry, blah, 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 work through it. I, rage a bit. Now I'm not angry anymore. But then when I get angry the next time, it's going to happen the same thing again. So in order to clear that energy, we need to change those stories. We need to release those parts of our logic that still hold on to those beliefs. We need to clear it at the root, at the source. And this is the work of actual energy clearing. And that's why it's so important that we get to the root. It doesn't matter what the symptom is in our actual everyday life. We need to cultivate a practice that keeps us getting to the root so that we can release the energetic issue from our tissues. Doing this, cultivating a healthy energy body, frees up our energy so that we can grow healthier and we can grow up emotionally. And when we grow up emotionally, we're able to act in the world. We're able to act differently in the world. And it won't work to just sit around and do kind of inner work and then not make a change in the world. The reason why you're doing this work is so that you can step up and make a difference. When you feel good about the way you feel, even if you're having a hard time sometimes, even if you're feeling these quote unquote bad feelings, when you feel good about the way that you are with your emotions, then you feel good about the consequences of the way you express yourself in the world. So let's move into cultivating an adult emotional body. So a healthy adult emotional body is inspired by different archetypal energies. And one of them is the child. So how, am I getting you confused now? How can you be childlike and not childish? That's the kind of idea, right? So having an adult emotional body that still experiences wonder and trust and adventure and joy, exuberant joy, that's the healthy child energy. So the emotional body of the adult is not childish. Childish is kind of, overreacting, underreacting, shutting down, closing off, going numb, keeps us immature in our expectations, in our needs, and in our emotional expressions. So these are the kind of very basic states that we need to understand, the difference between childlike and childish. So the first thing that we need to cultivate is a baseline. And this baseline is safety, feeling safe and feeling protected. And this is something that we create within ourselves so that it just becomes your normal baseline of being. Throughout, the wide range of your normal everyday life, we need to feel safe. The second is that you feel your life force and you feel your freedom. You feel that you're free to use your life force to open into all areas of your life. And again, it's just a normal baseline for yourself, the way you move around in the world. Number 3 is the right use of your willpower. You feel that your power is yours, and you feel this innate responsibility to all of life to learn how to express your power through the right use of will. The fourth is meaning. We need to cultivate meaning so that you see that you do have free will and that all your choices come from that place. We need to do actions that allow us to cultivate this apart from, just going through life. So these 4 things are the underlying baseline support that supports the cultivation of an adult emotional body. So what's the difference in how you grow up? Well, if you were allowed to experience the consequences of your emotions in your life as a child, which a lot of us weren't because we were, we never really got to have them. Oh, stop crying. Don't be angry. Go to your room. A lot of adults around us didn't have healthy adult energy bodies. So their response and their reactions was to repress and suppress our emotional response. But if you were allowed to feel the consequences of your emotional expressions in the world, for example, if you were allowed to learn that, shouting at somebody makes you feel bad, then you learn that through your own first-hand experience. You start to understand why it's not emotionally healthy for us to do certain things. It's sort of the same way, we learn the laws of the physical world by falling over and realizing, gravity works. We also learn that some things can be emotionally painful or psychologically painful. So ideally, if we're allowed to make these kind of choices and, mess up and suffer the consequences as children, we learn through our own experience what doesn't feel the way we want to in our life. And so we start to figure out for ourselves how we want to use our will, how we want to feel. So this is all part of helping a child in the natural development of their energy body and their emotional body to understand what their feelings are, how they feel, what their emotions are, what they feel about those emotions. Because right now we're sort of in a culture that very much keeps us in this emotional childlike state, childish state, instead of helping us mature into healthy adults. So I want to talk about a few kind of red flags for signs of having a childish energy body. Blame. If we're blaming other people, other organizations for things that happen in our life, it's a red flag of an emotional child body. Because if you're blaming others, you are putting yourself out of the space of authority. You're putting the authority somewhere else. Whereas, an adult understands that we're responsible for ourselves. So that kind of taking responsibility is the opposite of blame. And this is a huge problem in our global culture. People are being rewarded for being emotionally stunted. So, for example, all these other words I have here, emotional dumping. What does that mean? Emotional dumping means I don't feel good, so now I'm going to push my emotions into you so that I don't have to feel them and so that you feel bad instead. Shutting down and disassociating and suppressing and repressing, not having any boundaries. These kind of things are rewarded in our culture. Because to show a lot of emotions, even if we're showing a lot of happy emotions, like I've had people shout at me in public for being too happy, so we kind of live in this culture that wants us to walk around with poker faces on all the time. And so realizing if we are underreacting or overreacting, it doesn't mean that we're too sensitive or that we are, overly triggered. But we need to find that balance in our sensitivity so that we can take responsibility for how we're showing up. And being engaged in what we're doing so that we feel everything we're doing without having these overpowering emotional reactions is really a fundamental requirement for living as a shaman. So I want to talk a little bit about cultivating healthy relationships, because there's the relationship between you and your emotions, but there's also that kind of intimacy and vulnerability in your emotional relationship to other people, but also to spirit. Because the truth is that our relationship with spirit changes when we're willing to open to intimacy with spirit. And if we are going to open intimacy to spirit, we have to open intimacy in the rest of our lives as well. There's no other way around that. It's becoming more intimate with ourselves, with spirit, with the world. But the good thing is we can start in the spirit world because it's a really safe place to do it. And a lot of us are actually, afraid of being vulnerable and being intimate with other humans because humans are scary. We're predators, right? So learning to express our emotions in a safe space like the spirit world can be a really good way to practice opening up yourself to a more engaged, emotional, and intimate life with other humans. As an adult, if we choose to be intimately and emotionally involved, we make those choices because it's how we choose to be in life. I'm not choosing to be intimate and emotionally involved because I need something from others. That's kind of when we're coming into manipulation. So it's a choice in life. How do I choose to engage with life? Do I want to be intimate with life? Do I want to be vulnerable with life? And again, these are the sort of fundamental questions to ask yourself if you want to go further, go deeper. How is it working for you right now? Is it acceptable to you the way that you are in your relationships with yourself, with your emotions, with other people, and with spirit? Another thing that's really important to look at in general as we're kind of looking at, what it means to develop and cultivate a healthy emotional body is our wake. What do we leave behind? Look behind you. How are you ending relationships? How are you walking away? Is there chaos? Are you creating chaos? So understanding our emotional expression is key. And the best way to do that is to look backwards, and see what are you creating behind you. Healthy adults don't leave a massively destructive wake behind them. So I want to talk a little bit about chakras, because I think chakras is a really cool way to structure our understanding of ourselves. So this is the slide that I had before, and I'm just going to plot in the chakras on here. So cultivating an adult emotional body. So we got this root chakra, safety, sacral chakra, our life force, our freedom, and then our third chakra, our solar plexus chakra, the life force direction in our life. In our modern society, we are really encouraged to shut down our lower chakras. I remember when I first came back to Europe after many years in Asia, coming back to Europe, and I sort of realized, wow, everybody's third eyes are so open, but they're not grounded for shit. And a lot of people are very disconnected from that lower part. So again, we're going off to, I'm a starseed, I want to fly off to Mars, where really what we need to do to change our world here and now is to get more grounded, create that baseline of safety, start cleaning up our messes, and come into that place where, we're in truth with where we are and what we're doing. Truth, that fourth component, discernment, our ability to go beyond, these given ideas like religion and politics and culture, and come into these eternal truths. To begin as an adult to align ourselves with those eternal truths and start to serve those truths and abide by those truths that go beyond your life. We have all these wonderful distractions in our lives, but what I really want to the agenda I have here is I want to remind you to cultivate the things that matter first, and do all that entertaining stuff with your leftover time. Don't entertain yourself first. Educate yourself first. Do the things that matter. Come back down into that baseline of safety, that matter of your body, so feeling safe. And we're going to talk about the yin and the yang of emotional expression. So the yin, the kind of dragon energy, the inner experience, and the yang, the outer expression of our emotions. So as adults, when we start to cultivate our energy and we're having this healthy emotional body, we then need to learn how to clear the energies that are causing the reactions in the first place, and get rid of this unhealthy energy that we might have been holding on to. So we need to look at these kind of things of, true compassionate expression, the honest expression of emotions in a way that's concerned with what is good for all living things. And that is an expression of this true yang energy. True yin energy, the inner world, is the exploration of what do I feel? In a healthy way, where I'm not judging my emotions, but I'm exploring with them, going a little bit deeper within myself. What do I need to clear that I carry within me? Expressions, memories, beliefs, all that stuff that get in the way, that start to block, that sticky, icky stuff that stops the flow of energy through my hollow bone, through my tube, through my flute. And what does it look like as I give this gift to myself of these healthy, true, beautiful emotions, this dance of emotions, this movement, this sensual experience, this inner work coming out into form in the world in a healthy outer expression? This is really important, so that we engage with our emotions in a way where we're not just circling round and round and round in these kind of downward spiral patterns, but that we're opening the spiral up so that we're creating a positive resonance around us. So I want to talk a little bit about the truth triad. This is my term, the truth triad. It's the energy that connects all the chakras. And this is an energy as well that needs to be cultivated and used daily for us to be in a healthy place with our emotions. To know our truth internally, and to not make actions externally until we know that we're coming from a place of truth. If I don't know, to say I don't know. If I'm not sure, let me say, hey, let me just sit on this and I'll get back to you. That's an adult response. When we don't know our truth, that we can be patient and trust the fact that the other person is going to have to be patient too. You don't need to come up with an answer and run over yourself in your own truth just because somebody else asked you for something. From that place of truth, we generate boundaries. Boundaries is a hugely important part of this energy body cultivation, because our boundaries are going to keep things out and also keep ourselves in. It's that crucial part of integrity. There has to be a boundary for something to be in integrity. If we're going to be able to cultivate an ever-increasing health and well-being state for ourselves in all of the chakras, we have to have these boundaries. We have to have this grounding cord, and we have to have this truth triad. So the triad are these three places, and they're the Dantian points in Chinese medicine, basically from the head, intuition and good judgment, from the heart, discernment, and from our gut instinct. So these three places at the same time. So an activity you can do to play around with this, comes in the next chapter in this course material, the Truth Triad. I'd really recommend that you look at that if you are someone who sort of sometimes finds it hard to make decisions, or you don't really know what you feel. Do the Truth Triad. It will really help. It's helped me a lot. I'm still struggling when I go to an ice cream shop and know which flavor I want. But in these kind of bigger life impacting decisions, the Truth Triad has completely changed the way that I do things now. Your emotions are energy. They're just energy. Some are stronger than others. And for example, anger can be a hugely powerful energy. Energy is our power. It's our ability to do work, to make a difference. So how can we use our emotional energy to do good work? Because emotions are power. We need to learn how to moderate that power so that the work we do isn't harmful or damaging. The ultimate teaching is the ability to own our power. Our power is our true aligned energy. When we honor this power, when we listen to our truth, and we act in accordance with our inner guidance, we risk moving in the direction of our dreams. We speak our truth and we let ourselves feel what we're feeling. When we honor our power, anger bows to us. Anger softens her gaze with respect because she knows that you are in charge. You receive the teachings from this emotion, and the emotion gives you gratitude. You're not driven by your emotion, you're driven by your dreams. So these emotions don't need to burn us, but they help light our way. When you own your power, you have befriended your emotions in mutual respect and appreciation. And imagine if our culture knew how to process all these emotions from a place of love and respect. Imagine how quickly our world would transform. It starts with the individual. It starts with you. As each of us learn to empower ourselves through these teachings of emotions, we naturally relate better to ourselves, and we're able to step into our most aligned version of ourselves. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. I would love for you to move into the Truth Triad exercise after this so that you put some practical work into it. It's just a short 5-minute exercise. You could read it or you could do the audio. Either way, make sure you get it done. Do the work. Thank you for being here.